when I go, this is bad. This is really bad. But this ain't good. This really ain't good.
Some Texas farm operations had to shut down after losing virtually all of their workforce, an exodus triggered by the increase in immigration raids and increased enforcement. The ripple effects of these raids are the gift that keeps on giving and will be felt nationwide. Unpicked crops are now left unharvested. Livestock were left untended.
They've left because of immigration raids and policies that treat the people that grow our food, even the ones with work permits, like criminals. No workers means no harvest. Do you think food's expensive now? Just wait.
Americans who like to eat. I'm Linda, and I want to talk about empty grocery shelves. They are coming, and sooner than we think.
Now, I can hear you all say, you don't care, you're glad they're getting them. They're breaking the law, number one. They are criminals. They're not criminals. They are violating a civil violation, which is a fine or a penalty. It is not criminal, unlike the felon in the White House. That's a criminal.
Did you ever think that when you voted for President Trump that things are going to cost you more and you're going to lose money?
I never thought I was going to lose this much money, this fast.
Well, thanks to the big orange gremlin looking mother. Multiple farms in Texas just shut down overnight. Why? Because ICE raids made nearly 100% of the workforce completely vanish. People ran, got detained, or flat out got scared to death and never came back. Dairy farms are in panic mode right now. Cows got to be milked every 8 hours. And guess what? Nobody's showing up to milk these folks. This isn't some Texas problem either. This is happening across the entire nation. ICE isn't just out here enforcing some bullshit laws. They are actively crippling our food systems with fear and chaos. You want to talk about consequences? This ain't just about politics anymore, y'all. It's about what's on your table, what's in your fridge, or what's about to be missing from your store. These Nimrods aren't saving America. They're starving it.
Texas farmers are in panic, not because of drought, not because of bad weather, but because of workers, mostly undocumented, mostly Latino, vanished overnight. And now, the very same folks who cheered for ICE raids, the same one who supported crackdowns and border walls, are crying because of their farm can't just function without immigrant labor they just run off. The irony writes to serve. Crops are rotting, animals are going unfed, rural communities are breaking down, and food shortages, they are on the way, not just in Texas, but across the USA. These farmers are looking around now, asking, who is going to help us? And believe it or not, some of them are just turning to Black Americans. The same group that America has never treated as essential until things fall apart. But here's the truth. Black folk have always been at the root of America's agricultural labor. From slavery to sharecropping to being locked out of land ownership and USDA support. So before anybody go knocking on their door asking for help, we are going to talk about how America got here. Because this crisis is not just about farms shutting down. It's about chicken coming home to roost. Let's get into it.
We're here. We are here at the FAFO stage. This is really bad. And if you appreciate my content, please engage with this video. I'm just going to read this to you. Multiple Texas farms shut down after almost 100% of workforce vanishes overnight. In a stunningly swift overnight change, some Texas farm operations had to shut down after losing virtually all of their workforce, an exodus triggered by the increase in immigration raids and increased enforcement. The ripple effects of these raids are the gift that keeps on giving and will be felt nationwide. Unpicked crops are now left unharvested. Livestock were left untended, and rural economies are on edge. The story isn't just a tale of woe for Texas farms, it's a warning for American agribusiness, food prices, and communities that keep food on our plates. I need you to share this with every Republican you know. And you don't even need to wait for their response. They just need to know what's happening. And this is part of my line of work. I deal with commercial farmers, including these small farmers, as clients, and I cannot tell you how this is the beginning of the complete collapse of our economy under this Project 2025 administration that doesn't know what they're doing. You talk about the immediate shuttering of farms, because this is actually what's happening with the food, with the harvests that are lying there completely rotting. That is a loss of food to local food distributors, local grocery stores, local restaurants, hospitals. They sell their harvests, all sorts of vegetables, to businesses within the state of Texas. This is where you can go into your local grocery store, and now you're going to see hardly any vegetables or fruit, depending on what they're growing, or a shortage of meat. This is what's going to happen. Now, all of the other industries that support farming, you've got local pesticide, herbicide, fertilizer suppliers that are just, their sales are going to plummet. These farmers aren't going to be purchasing that. You've got H-2A workers who are now gone, migrant workers who are now gone. They were paying taxes. Even if they didn't have social security numbers, they were given tax numbers, tax ID numbers. So now you got millions of dollars just poof, gone overnight from these Texas communities. You've got trucking companies that are hired to haul the produce from the farms to the packaging plants. You've got packaging plants who wash the vegetables, grade the vegetables, pack the vegetables, whose sales are going to plummet. Now you're going to have other industries who don't employ either migrant workers or H-2A workers who are going to have layoffs. This is all under Republican leadership, not just from the White House, but from the Republicans that were elected in the state of Texas. And if you think this is going to stop at Texas, you've got another thing coming. And you want to know which farms are going to be impacted further down the road? They're going to be safe for now. There's a small percentage of farmers who are actually Democrats. And they understand how important it is to protect their employees, take care of their employees. Those employees who feel safe will keep showing up for work because they know the owners have their backs, which says something about these other farms where the employees are like, I'm too scared to show up. Let me add this final thing. This is going to impact farmers. They're at risk of going out of business. Who's going to jump in? The federal government to compensate them with our tax dollars. So now our tax dollars is going to be used to cover the bullshit leadership of this administration on top of the overwhelming increasing tax dollars being used by this administration to scare, to deport, to imprison people with brown skin. Like our tax dollars are not helping everyday Americans at all.
100% of their workforce vanished. Wow. So all those people, who got eyes called on them, they were working on the farms. So now that they're gone, they cannot sustain the farms. You know what's crazy about this video? Because I talked about this like 2 months ago when Trump brought over all these South Afrikaners, farm people, where we find out that they were not really even farmers. And I was talking about this and found out that a few of our dear white farmers here had started losing their farms because of promises that were made to them and was not kept by this administration. So now it's trickling down to some other farmers because now their workforce, they're gone. And I was seeing somewhere where somebody came over, and it was a Caucasian man. He came over from Twitter, and he was like, y'all, a lot of these farmers, white farmers, they thought that Black people were going to come and work for their farms.
there's a lot going on in this country right now. You know, us heading into possibly World War II. But this is a conversation just to kind of talk about right now, that people are kind of seeing I guess what's the word? I can't even find the word, but the decisions that they made, they are coming back to hunt them. Let's just say that. So sorry to hear this, but yeah. So I do hope that some of these Native Americans that did lose their lands, that they do get back some of these farms that are being lost.
Keith Smith says most immigration workers left after the law took effect, so this potato farmer hired Americans. Problem is, he says, most show up late, work slower, and are ready to head home after lunch. Some even quit after just one day out in the field.
There's a Hispanic man that works for us, and I say, you know, he's 52, and he'll make anywhere from $70 to $100 a day. I said, if you can keep up with him and do a good job, you can make that. But they're not physically in shape to do it, and, you know, probably not mentally tough enough to do it, some of them.
Down on illegal immigration is starting to affect the Texas agriculture industry. Some farmers say their workers are too scared to show up for work. Fox 4's Casey Stegall spoke with the Texas Agriculture Commissioner about the recent immigration raids. Casey.
Hey, Steve, good to see you. The state Republican Agriculture Commissioner tells me that the stepped up immigration enforcement is taking a toll on the industry, not just here in Texas, but beyond, while federal immigration authorities say they're only doing their jobs. Just 40 miles or so south of the Dallas hustle and bustle,
row crops, hay production,
sits Lee Calvert's 2,000-acre Ellis County family farm.
My father helps me. Obviously, my little sister helps. My wife, huge help. I've got 3 sons, and they're coming along and doing what they can.
Calvert knows he's lucky not having to rely on farmhands to check the chores off, because those who do say absenteeism among hired migrant help has disrupted their entire operations.
They hear that ICE is coming, or they see somebody from INS roll up. Well, they just don't show up. They're scared to come to work.
Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller tells Fox 4 dairy farmers have been hit the hardest.
But on a dairy, those cows, they never stay milked. You milk them 3 times in a 24-hour period. So if the crew doesn't show up, these dairymen go into panic mode.
Are you a U.S. citizen? Do you have documents to be here?
Recent video posted to immigration rights groups' social media channels shows federal agents conducting raids on California farms. President Trump in the last week briefly paused this type of enforcement within a handful of economic sectors which rely heavily on migrant labor, like agriculture. Then it was back to business.
We're enforcing everywhere. In other words, the president has said if you are an illegal immigrant into this country, you ought to voluntarily go back and come through the proper channels.
Folks like Lee Calvert agree there's no place in America for migrants with violent criminal backgrounds, but wishes there was more gray area.
And I think there needs to be a distinction made in a pathway for the people that do want to come here, obey our laws, integrate into our societies, work in our factories, fields, wherever.
So the U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that more than 40% of the nation's farm workers are undocumented.
Texas is continuing the F around and find out stage. Guess what just hit 0 before Donald Trump's approval rating? Right there. Farm labor attendance, 0. Entire fields, whole crews are ghosting fields, leaving fruits and vegetables to rot because the Donald Trump administration is too busy playing cat and mouse with people who just want to feed America. To the MAGA people who are saying that immigrants are taking your job, this right here is your opportunity. Pick yourselves up by the bootstraps, get those buckets, and pick those strawberries. No more hiding behind those welfare checks that are padded behind blue state dollars. You wanted the raids, you got them. Now get in those fields and pick those fruits and vegetables before you watch the produce aisle turn to a luxury boutique section. Chop chop, MAGA.
Hello, Americans who like to eat. I'm Linda, and I want to talk about empty grocery shelves. They are coming, and sooner than we think. There's a 3,000 per day immigrant detention quota. 40% of farm workers in the United States are undocumented. You do the math. Farms are an excellent place to find undocumented immigrants to detain and deport, depleting the workforce. And now, those who haven't been rounded up are afraid to show up. Let's look at just one state, Texas. According to farmers, this issue has been affecting their farms for a couple of weeks, but overnight, it bottomed out. On several Texas farms, nearly 100% of farm workers aren't showing up. So what does that mean for you? Remember Trump's comment about having $2 instead of 30? Cows are milked 3 times a day. No workers, no milk, and some very unhappy cows. What if your grocery store, instead of getting 30 gallons of milk, gets 2? 28 families will not be able to buy milk. Now extrapolate that among produce. Produce that instead of being harvested is rotting on the vine. Texas is one of the top 10 producers of 40 major commodities. It is the 4th largest agriculture producer in the nation and 2nd in animal products. And it's not just cows not being milked and produce rotting on the vine. 1 in 7 Texans works in an agriculture-related job. If farms stop working, those jobs are affected. Workers not earning money aren't paying taxes. And yes, undocumented workers pay taxes. Without money coming in, they will cut back on things like restaurants and small businesses, movie theaters, wherever they spend their discretionary income. Last week, Trump ordered a halt to immigration enforcement at farms. But it may already be too late to solve the current problem. The lack of workers now mean farms won't hit full production this year. And if they lose planting now, there is nothing to harvest later. Yet, despite Trump's assurances, a few days after his statement, the administration resumed the raids. Vance says the administration plans to continue clearing the country of undocumented immigrants. Quote, "We're enforcing everywhere. In other words, you ought to voluntarily go back and come through the proper channels," unquote. That can literally take years. And frankly, it doesn't protect you from being deported. In the meantime, the question remains, how long are you willing to go without food? Bye, Americans.
They've left because of immigration raids and policies that treat the people that grow our food, even the ones with work permits, like criminals. No workers means no harvest. Do you think food's expensive now? Just wait. And this isn't just a Texas issue. It's your dinner table, your kid's school lunch, your grocery bill, your local farmer's market. Do you want America first? Well, guess what? America just ran out of farm workers. And it turns out crops don't pick themselves. We've arrested, detained, or deported the workforce. And now we don't have enough food. There aren't enough people to take care of the livestock either. Guess what? Cows don't feed themselves. Chickens can't clean their own pens. And then they get sick and they die. And there goes your milk, your eggs, and your cheeseburger. This is what happens when we let people write policy who haven't worked a day in their life, especially on a farm, but they never miss a steak dinner. We need migrant workers. We need labor protections for the migrant workers. If the workforce continues to disappear, so will all the food on your plates.
Texas farms generate around $32 billion a year in revenue for the state, huge, valuable. There's around 100,000, and there's hundreds of thousands of farm work in Texas. And around 20-30% of those are foreign born, and around 17% of those are undocumented. So there's a lot of immigrants and a substantial number of undocumented immigrants. Now, the ICE raids have caused people to stay at home because of the fear that they're going to get deported. This means that farms are losing their staff. Some areas have lost half their works overnight. That's halts milk operations, and also means the herd isn't being tended to. But it's not 100% of staff, because less than 30% are immigrants in the first place. So we need to clarify 2 points. First of all, it is an issue because farms require a lot of manual labour. And even if you're losing 10% of the staff, that's going to be a bigger impact, but it's not 100%. Now, the reason it's a problem right now is this harvest is going on right now. So it's the winter wheat harvest, so it's plants at winter, gets harvested now, and around 50% of wheat would be harvested right now. And it's a critical phase. That's not going to happen if the staff aren't there. You then got a lot of fruit being harvested right now: cantaloupes, watermelons, peaches, plums, blackberries. They're all being harvested right now in either central or northern Texas. And these delays could either cause a loss of the crop or a reduced quality and therefore reduced revenue for the farmers. So it's actually quite a big issue. There's also secondary effects. The hay and silage is having troubles being harvested. That means there's going to be a long tail impact because the lack of hay now is going to impact the feed supplies later on. You've also got problems with logistics, so haulage, delivery, and then food processing plants. So think about abattoirs, etc. If the immigrant workers don't turn up for that either, you're not going to be able to get the food processed even once it is going from the farm to the factory. So this is quite a big issue. Not 100% of staff, but it is a significant percentage of staff which is going to impact food supplies.
Many crops needed around the country, such as grapefruit, corn, citrus, oranges, all the vegetables, tomatoes, carrots, cabbage, onions are all grown here. And guess what? The undocumented workers are not showing up there. They're not showing up here in Florida, and they're not showing up in California. Now, I can hear you all say, you don't care. You're glad they're getting them. They're breaking the law, number one. They are criminals. They're not criminals. They are violating a civil violation, which is a fine or a penalty. It is not criminal, unlike the felon in the White House. That's a criminal. You will be complaining when you see no fruit, vegetables, and other crops in our grocery stores to eat. You will care when you see the prices escalate even higher. Isn't that the reason y'all supposedly voted for Trump? Because he was going to bring the prices down, and y'all could only complain and complain about everything under Biden. I don't hear y'all complaining about these out of control prices anymore that we continue to see everywhere thanks to Donald Trump. And all the prices that we've seen go up because of the trade deals or no trade deals and the tariffs. Well, guess what? These prices are going up. Thank you, Donald Trump. You and Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is such a genius. You know, he is the whole reason that we're having this whole problem, because he is so anti-immigrant. And by the way, his family came from Europe. They were persecuted as immigrants. And Elon, whoops, did I say Elon? I did say Elon. Elon, how do you like hanging out with Stephen's wife? What do you think? Love to hear from my Democrats and my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burned out light bulbs. What do you all think? Only going to cost us more money, and to accomplish what? This is not a solution. It is the problem. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are the problem. Hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burned out light bulbs. Let me know what you think. You like these higher prices and the food shortages you're going to see if this continues? And it's going to continue. They're not going to show up. And I'm going to talk about ICE in another video.
American workers and American taxpayers have been taken advantage of for multi-generation, for decades. And it's time for somebody to stand up and put us first and put the country first and do what's best for the country, not what's best for the politicians.
Even if you as a farmer suffer.
That's right.
I mean, some people would hear that and be quite surprised that you're prepared to put your livelihood, your family's livelihood, on the line for the sake of politics.
Well, that's my duty as for being the head of my household. I've got to do what I got to do, what's going to be better for the future, better for the kids. It's not about today, it's about the long term. The long game is where the rewards are going to be.
But don't the price of tariffs and what happens in commodity markets like soybean, doesn't that affect you in the short term and affect your ability to provide for your family?
Look, tariffs will probably have a detrimental effect on soybean price in the near future. In the long term, it'll probably work out. I'm a farmer. I deal with bad weather. I deal with dry weather. I deal with torrential rains. We deal with hurricanes. What's a tariff going to do? You know, I got to raise a crop. If I was worried, I'd stay home and not raise a crop. If I was worried about it, I still got to get out there and raise my crop to get the price. If you don't get the yield, it doesn't make any difference. You know, I got to deal with all these other things. What's a tariff? I can't control that, so it is what it is. America.
Did you ever think that when you voted for President Trump that things are going to cost you more and you're going to lose money?
I never thought I was going to lose this much money this fast.
Jim is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump 3 times.
How do you feel about your vote for Donald Trump now?
Well, I feel like perhaps I should have considered some other option. For me, it's going to cost me around $150,000 a year.
$150,000.
Yeah, roughly 50% of my revenue.
That's a huge hit.
That's a massive hit.
Before long, if we keep going down this path, there won't be a tomato, there won't be a bell pepper, there won't be a cucumber, a grapefruit, or an orange that's grown in the United States because it'll all be imported.
This video wasn't just about farm workers leaving their job or immigration raids causing chaos. This was about a system breaking down. And more importantly, it was about accountability. This is what happens when politics is driven by fear instead of common sense and humanity. Texas farmers, many of whom supported anti-immigration policies for years, are now facing the consequences of those same policies. They cheered for the crackdown, they voted for the politicians who promised to clean up immigration and take their country back, and now they're watching the labor force that kept their farms running vanish overnight. Let's be clear. These farms didn't fall apart because of a storm. They collapsed because of the people doing the real work, the ones planting, picking, tending animals, packing food, got scared and left. And now, with the crops rotting and the animals starving, they are looking around asking, where did everybody go? Well, you told them to leave. This is a part that really exposed the hypocrisy. For years, undocumented workers have been essential to American agriculture. These folks paid taxes, took the jobs nobody else wanted, and made it possible for America to enjoy cheap, fresh food. And now they're watching an entire industry fall apart simply because America, especially Republican-led states, refused to treat these workers like human beings. It's like they wanted the labor without responsibility, the work without the workers, the benefit without the humanity. Now to my Democrat viewers, let's address the elephant in the room. They are asking you to step in, to fill the gap, to help rescue the very same people who've historically excluded you, disrespected your values, and weaponized the system against communities you cared about. Let's not forget, Democratic voters have spent decades fighting for fair wage, labor protection, and social equity while being mocked and shut down by the same folks now asking for help. And now that the system is collapsing, now you want their help? This is the same country that told you guys to pull yourself by your bootstraps, while it rigged the economy for the top 1%. And now that the machine is broken, the one built on exploitation, suddenly Democrats are being seen as the last hope. Y'all weren't calling for Democrats when they were fighting for climate change. You weren't calling them essential when they were organizing for union rights or immigrant protection. But now that the fruit are dying on the vine, they are finally on your mind? To Democrats across America, especially those who believe in progressive values, this should be a wake-up call, because what's happening in Texas is a warning to the whole nation. You cannot separate immigrant justice from economic justice. You cannot advocate for workers' rights while letting ICE terrorize the very people doing the work. Democrats have got to get serious about protecting migrant laborers, not just with nice speeches, but with real legislation. You can't stand by while right-wing cruelty destroy your food system and then act surprised when the impact hits your food system. The food that comes from Texas ends up on tables in California, New York, Georgia, Michigan. This is national. Let's not get it twisted. Democratic voters, organized and working class communities have long been the backbone of the system that sustained the USA. They've been the ones organizing for livable wages, fair treatment, and protections for the underrepresented. And now Republicans want to rent their back again? Let's be real. Democrats aren't there to save you from your bad policy choices. If you want them at the table, please come with real commitments. Support for immigrant labor, investment in food security, climate adaptation, and small farms aligned with Democrat values, because they're not there to be your emergency backup plan. Here is the truth. These Republican politicians never had a long-term plan. They didn't think about how farms would run without labor. They didn't think about how deportations would destroy rural economies. They just wanted to score a culture war and sound tough on cameras. But slogans don't harvest crops. Sound bites don't feed animals. And fear don't grow food. Now you've got farmers begging for federal assistance. The same assistance they claimed to be socialist just a year ago. Now they want subsidies and bailout. funded by your tax dollars. So Democrats are going to end up paying for their mess. Let's talk about who is just being punished here. It's not the wealthy landowners or MAGA politicians. It's not the people flying private jets while ranting about border security. It's the poor. It's the working class families, whether they are immigrants, union workers, small business owners, or everyday Democrats who is going to see food prices rise, jobs disappear, and communities hollowed out. And once again, Democrats voters are expected to fix what Republican cruelty has broken. But this is also the chance to do things differently. This moment calls for the complete rethinking of your food system and labor force. You need a system that gives dignity and legal protection to the workers who actually land these farms. You need to fund small farms that align with sustainable practices and fair labor. You need to center democratic values, equality, justice, and economic fairness in how you remake the system. Because if you don't do it, you will stuck in this endless circle of exploitation, panic, and blame. To every Democrat out there watching me, let me give you this message. You don't owe anyone a rescue mission, but you do owe it to your own values to stay informed, to stay organized, and push for the change that puts people over politics. You can build stronger food systems, you can support urban farming, food cooperatives, you can invest in local economies. This time, you should choose justice. If you have watched this video until this time and you have understood the message given in the video, I want you to write down there in the comment section, "I love America," so that we can push this video to more other viewers. And we see you all in the next one. Ciao.